My name is Hadley Bajramovic, and I am La Gringa. And I have with me my co-host.
Zayra Ivette Padilla, La Chapina. Hello. Hola.
Hello, hello. And today we have as our guest Carlos Sanchez, who is an attorney, a very experienced and accomplished attorney, who does a lot of work with removal proceedings and post-removal relief, and has been able to accomplish incredible success for many clients who are in removal proceedings and fighting for relief, such as cancellation of removal, which is basically a green card, or asylum, or other types of relief in front of immigration judges, really across the United States, right, Carlos? I mean, you've appeared in Southern California, I think Texas. Where's the farthest you've gone?
I think appeared in Virginia remotely, but
Wow.
we've been successful. Texas, California, all throughout California, San Francisco. I have cases in Oregon as well. So all throughout the continental United States.
And because our viewers aren't all in immigration law or are lawyers, but they're watching us because they want to understand better immigration. Will you explain why you can appear all over the United States?
Yeah, so one of the advents from COVID was the adoption of the televideo conferencing, kind of like we have here, where we're able to appear remotely through the platform WebEx, and I can just appear through video, and it's much simpler because then we're able to do the simple kind of proceedings where we're just admitting to the allegations, saying we're applying for asylum. We're going over the asylum applications that have been filed and setting for a final trial date, and then doing the trial in person. So it really reduces a lot of the expenses for travel. We don't have to go halfway across the nation just to say a few words, then get back in a plane and come back. So our clients don't have to pay for those expenses, and they can get quality legal services remotely, and can seek those out and don't have to have it locally. But we still, just have to appear for the final hearing. But it's been a great convenience for all practitioners. And there's, especially for the first hearings, we're not doing testimony for the most part. So, the non-citizens aren't unfairly treated in these WebEx proceedings because it's primarily just the attorney talking. So it's more of a benefit to the non-citizens than it is a detriment. And then the final trial we do in person. So we will travel to wherever we have to go to do those trials.
Well, okay, I have two questions. First, um, you were able to appear in Virginia as a California licensed attorney, right?
E- Yeah, so for
Okay.
immigration, it is unique in that because it is a federal legal field preemption, so it occupies the federal legal field. So you can be barred anywhere in the United States, and be accepted into EOAR. That's the Executive Office of Immigration Review, to practice in immigration court. So you don't have to be a California attorney to practice in California. You can practice immigration law in California and be barred elsewhere. And it is fairly common in immigration to do that, to be barred elsewhere and still practice in another state.
My other question, this is more out of curiosity. Have you been in person in court while attorneys are appearing by WebEx? Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's not uncommon. Oftentimes, when you do the individual trial, the judge will schedule some of the master calendars. So you'll sit there and they'll converse, between the attorneys, and you're there, and and then they'll proceed with the trial.
Okay. It just is so weird for me. I don't think I've seen it because I haven't been to court in probably 6 or 7 years. And, it was always a packed court, really tight, hot, attorneys kind of going in and out and checking into multiple courtrooms. And it seems like this has eliminated a lot of that.
Yeah, we're not. I appreciate it for the obviously our new health concerns that we're now aware of. I
Yeah.
remember prior to COVID, being packed in there, and the security guard would always say,
Hmm.
"Hey, scoot in. You're not going to get sick from each other." You can't say that anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's also another
Uh-huh.
benefit is, yeah, we're not being exposed to multiple environments in close proximity to each other. Hearing people cough and then saying, "Oh, I can't go forward. I'm sick, Judge," and they're sitting next to you for the last 40 minutes.
Oh,
It's never a good
great.
experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good for I think the health of everyone.
Excuse
That
me.
they're able to appear remotely.
Yes.
Um,
I think we started talking about COVID and I sneezed. It's like psychosomatic. Well, Carlos, I was in court in, regularly around, I guess it was 2016, 17, when Trump was won the election. And, it looks like we're getting close to that possibly happening again. I don't know. I don't want to, say any or try to fortune tell that, but I remember the very next day in court, I mean November 3rd, the ICE attorneys took prosecutorial discretion administrative closure off the table. It just died the next day. What do you and can you explain? I mean, because you are in court now, you are intimately involved, you have your finger on the pulse. Tell me what you think is going to happen.
I mean, something similar. I mean, right now it seems like, uh, I mean, there's been kind of a roller coaster of events over the last 4 years with prosecutorial discretion. But now they're kind of in an area where they have the guidelines, the priorities, but they can depart from that, and sometimes it's for the better, and we get really great results where they agree to a grant or something, even though they're a priority. We've had other times where it's gone the other way, where they're clearly not a priority, and they're still not closing the case. So it does seem like it may be that situation where just it'll be the individual attorney, how they feel on November 3rd. Are they a Trumper and they're ready to shut down PD? That may happen, but you may have reasonable people that are, oh, we'll wait for the memo. Well, he's still is the Biden's still president until January 23rd, or until the inauguration. So they may hold off on that. But yeah, it is already affecting litigation strategies. In court the other day, I had someone was offered, PD termination, and they said, I'm not going to say no to that, Judge. We don't know what's happening in
Mm-hmm.
several months, and it really made me
Mhm.
realize, like, oh wow, like yeah, this is
Yeah.
something that if there's any, we have to look at the calendars and really think, like, before anything that's scheduled prior to January or after January. We really have to look at it. Is prosecutorial discretion a possibility, and whether to explore that or not now? Because if yeah, we can't wait until January. It may be too late.
Will you explain for the people who are listening what prosecutorial discretion means to us?
Yeah, so it's a power that's vested in the executive. The executive has the duty to carry out the laws of the United States, but the executive also has limited resources. So they can only enforce those laws in certain circumstances. And so, for instance, with respect to immigration, there's something around maybe 13 to 16 million people in the United States without status, but the government doesn't have the resources to adjudicate every case and issue removal orders, exhaust all appeals, and eventually remove all 13, 16 million individuals. So the president and the executive have made the decision to exercise its resources and use its resources strategically, and only to deport people that they consider a priority for removal. And so, under the current guidelines, the first priority would be national security risks, any kind of terrorist threat or security threat. Clearly, that's a priority for removal. The second would be danger to community safety. Somebody with a criminal history, they may not be a priority. They may be a priority for removal. and also a threat to border security. So that tends to be people that are, recent arrivals that have arrived since the Biden administration, or just prior to the Biden administration. Those are considered priorities for removal. And so the DHS will review a case in the docket and determine, are they a priority for removal? Do they fall within one of these three categories? If they are, then you will usually proceed with the hearing and go to the final trial. But if they find they're not a priority for removal, they'll often dismiss the case, and so that means that they're won't be subject to deportation. They won't get the benefits of being able to apply for asylum in court or to apply for work authorization, but they won't be subject to deportation, and so they can live their life accordingly, and maybe refile for asylum or some other benefit or something else that may come about, but they don't have to worry about being deported. So it's a very big benefit for a very large number of our clients, and we advocate for it very often when they may not have the strongest case for relief, and even if we do believe they have a strong case, DHS may just terminate it anyways over our objection. So it's a
Right, and that
huge benefit.
happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah, more so
Mhm.
recently after we've cleared out a lot of the lower priority cases, but yeah, it's been a huge benefit because a lot of cases, they may not be the strongest for asylum, and so it's better to terminate the case. It's also reduce the backlogs for a lot of the immigration courts, so they can more better handle the cases that are on its docket. Um, yeah, and it's allowed DHS to agree to a grant, even if there's a very strong case, they can just not oppose it and grant it, whereas previously they weren't able to do that. So it's a huge benefit, a lot of flexibility, and it's really changed how we operate in removal defense. The profession, this job changed 180 degrees with the Biden administration, and it might change again another 180 degrees back in
Right.
the other direction. Now, yeah, I feel like we've been mainly just requesting just prosecutorial discretion for the last 4 years, and it's now finally the recent arrivals have been set for trial, and those trials are going forward. Um, but yeah, it may eliminate that. So for a lot of children that arrived in the United States, especially those who came without a parent, the unaccompanied minors. Those cases we're able to close very easily now with filing for
Mhm.
TVPRA or for SIGIS, or it's just special categories that they're eligible for and can pursue relief for. Right now we're able to close the case and they can take their time pursuing that relief. Whereas in the Trump administration, those cases were in court the whole time. And right now, those visas aren't available for maybe 5 years, 6 years. So without being able to close the case, we have to keep going back into court, every six
Yeah.
months and just say, hey, visa's not available yet. And it wastes everybody's time, wastes the court's time, wastes our time, wastes the client's time, just to check in. I mean, if we don't check in, there can be very, very serious consequences too. And so it's a very large burden that really doesn't make a difference one way or the other, that I think may happen if prosecutorial discretion is taken off the table.
And I was looking at track info on the courts, and I think when I was practicing back in the like 2009 to 2016 when I was in court, I remember there was like a 200,000 case docket, nationwide, and they were complaining, the ICE attorneys, the judges, we have 200,000 cases. And now the track info is showing 3 million. I can't remember where we are now, but the exponential growth was like this. And so the 2025 memo is suggesting the project 2025 that ICE will now be able to go into schools, religious institutions, and hospitals without warrants and arrest immigration violators. I mean, what is that going to do to the court docket? I mean, how are they going to handle it? I mean, because a lot of these people will have, access to court for maybe being arriving aliens, or, they're not going to be able to execute. The memo suggests, broader power to execute expedited removal orders. I'm losing my words this Friday. What do you think's going to happen there?
Yeah, so that's where right. What sounds good on paper in political messaging doesn't really
Right.
match the reality. I think in the RNC
Mm-hmm.
convention, everyone had like mass deportation signs up, and it sounds great, right? You just round everyone up and you just send them out.
Yeah.
Like it's just that easy. It's just a simple process. But at least for now, the Supreme Court and Ninth Circuit still recognize the due process rights of non-citizens in
Mm-hmm.
immigration proceedings. That they do have to have the opportunity to meaningfully present evidence, and request relief in their case. And so, even though if these 13, 16 million people may be without authorization, they may be deportable as charged, but they still have the opportunity to apply for asylum, to apply for withholding of removal, to apply for protection of the Convention Against Torture. Especially if they've been here for more than 10 years, they can also apply for cancellation of removal if they have a qualifying relative. So these are very
Mm-hmm.
lengthy adjudications, and very serious applications for relief that have to be decided. Due process does require at least some consideration of these. And so, it's not just as simple, let's round everyone up and deport them. You have to issue the
Mm-hmm.
notice to appear. They have to go into court. You have to see if there's any kind of relief from removal. And that's just court. You still have the appeal process. You have the Board of Immigration Appeals. You have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You may have motions to reopen for new relief. You may have motions to reconsider, motion amendment. There's all these motions that can be filed. Um, how is that going to work if you try to do that to 13 million people? And they think they have a backlog now, like they have no
Right.
idea what it's going to be. It's I think, I remember, setting you would set especially in with during the Trump administration. You're setting hearings 3-4 years out. And then those hearings, you get a new
Yeah.
judge, and then you got to reset it again, and you got to look at the case again, and then you're setting it for another 3-4 years out. And so that's how a lot of these cases take. They can take 10 years very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
We have many, right?
let's add 13 million more 10-year complicated cases of people that have been
Uh-huh.
here forever.
Mhm.
Let's throw that into the system. Let's see how that works. And
You
that's the
think
other part.
they
Yeah.
Sorry, Carlos.
Yeah.
Obviously the people that are hearing these things and they really are, oh, like, yeah, let's deport all those people, kind of thing. I mean, they think they can just put them in the buses and, like you say, like gather them around and they just deport them. That I'm sure that's what they're in their head. That's how they think that it could be done, right?
Yeah, and they also think they're all criminals, and they're all
Yeah.
gang members and cartel members.
Mhm.
And when the
Mhm.
stories start coming out of the little kids that are left in school, or the foster care system that's going to be overburdened when all the parents are deported, what
Mm-hmm.
happens with those stories and those situations? In the really sympathetic cases, they're going to get caught up in the dragnet as well. And that's the part that to me just doesn't it isn't communicated enough. There's ICE loves their press release of we rounded up this child molester, blah blah blah, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, yes, immigrants are humans and humans commit crimes. It's going to happen. It's obviously less than the native born population. Stat that's never shared very widely. The other my other favorite stat is that actually non citizens as generations later generations actually commit more crimes as they assimilate into becoming Americans.
Right. Mhm. Like the
So it's
second
actually more
generation. Yeah.
dangerous for them to be here because they're going to be like
Yeah.
us and start committing crimes, rather than being immigrants who tend not to commit crimes. But yeah,
Yes.
obviously
Yeah.
that's not part of it. But I think one really big part of my experience from going from the Trump administration through the Biden administration is to really stay with the fight. because those cases that may have been ordered deported or order removed in the Trump administration, that was 4 years. These cases, like I say, can take 10 years. The administration can change, the policy can change, and the result of your case can change. So if there are these dragnets, if people are pulled into immigration court in mass, my recommendation would be to fight it, to fight it, and to fight every motion, every application, do everything you can to stay in court, to stay on appeal, because the policy can change, and everything can change.
Mm-hmm.
And we've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are the themes or the legal issues that you've been able to use to uh, be successful at the BIA or the Ninth Circuit?
Um, so I found that there's make it's one type of argument that we have been successful on that I think people tend to forget is family-based asylum claims. Um, so, for instance, we've had clients that were in Guatemala, and they had family members who were in the United States. They would send them money, and people knew that they were getting money, and so they were targeted for extortion, or for robbery. And oftentimes the courts interpret this as a private criminal concern or just a private crime. It's just a matter for the police to involve with. But for their family relationship, they would not have been targeted. Families are a particular
Mm-hmm.
social group under asylum, so this is a protected ground. And so even though it may seem like a regular crime or a generalized crime, that's not a basis for asylum, and some judges might say that, the BIA might say that, but we have been successful even with the Ninth Circuit saying no, if you were targeted because of your family relationship, your familial status, that is a basis for asylum. And so I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people would think they need to be some crusader, some political crusader who's in the news and who's very well known, and who's being
Right.
targeted and has to flee, or is a politician who's fleeing. But that's not the case. You can
Okay.
just be a regular
Mm-hmm.
person is being persecuted on the basis of protected ground, or have a fear of being persecuted in the future on a protected ground, and can obtain asylum on that basis. And so, and even if you don't obtain asylum, again, there's legal challenges that can have the case sent back to the immigration judge, where you can then close the case, or maybe there's other relief that develops after the fact. If there's you marry a U.S.
Right.
citizen, have U.S. citizen children that become of age, maybe you're a victim of a crime, a qualifying crime for U visa. There's just a lot of things that can develop in that interim, that can make a difference in the case.
And what types of asylum claims do you see the most of now in our most recent cases that you think have merit? I mean, we know a lot of people are coming for economic push and pull, but I'm talking about the ones that are meritorious, so that people can have an idea. Maybe if you want to just gloss over two or three.
Um, so I know at least one case we were successful on recently was for a political opinion of somebody from Nicaragua. And those have been successful if there is corroborative evidence of political participation, whether in the protests or as a membership in an opposition political party, um, due to the fact that the Sandinista regime is just is yeah is not allowed any opposition, and has been detaining, torturing, and killing anyone that's a
Mm-hmm.
threat to their power right now. And there's been very little information even in the last few years of what the human rights conditions are there. It's been a bit of a black box. There's no journalists that are allowed to report anything. No NGOs are allowed to exist there. So it is this, kind of, Iron Curtain situation there, where people that are fleeing there that have some corroborative evidence, can present a very strong case for asylum, because it is just so dangerous there, and such a terrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've
I
seen a
think,
lot more people coming, I mean, from Central and Southern America, South America,
yeah, and even
lately.
we've had an Afghan case too, where he also, it
Yeah.
was on the basis of political opinion, but he also had to travel, not just directly from Afghanistan to the U.S. He went from Afghanistan to Brazil, and then from Brazil up through Panama, through the Darien Gap,
Yeah.
and up through Central America, Mexico to the border. And I thought he was unique, but it turns out there's been thousands of Afghans who have done the
That's what
same
we've been
journey,
hearing. Mm-hmm.
because it's
Mm-hmm.
intolerable with the Taliban regime there, especially if you worked with the U.S., if you're a human rights defender, if you supported women's
Mm-hmm.
rights in Afghanistan. There, if you were part of the local government, that they want you to stay there to run things. It's a very dangerous situation. So those are cases that at least have priority for asylum interviews, so they don't have to wait 6 years or so. They can get their interview right away, and they have been very successful as well for obvious reasons, because the situation there is still just
Yeah.
intolerable.
Yeah, we have a lot of asylum cases that have been pending since 2014 now. I don't know if you know this, but we're starting to get interviews. We got one for one person that we filed, Brazil or Venezuela, Venezuela LGBT.
Venezuela. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're hoping to see a little bit of motion there. So we would love to translate everything in Spanish, but I think that we should do it with subtitles, Zyra. What do you think your friends, colleagues, social media followers would want to know from Carlos today as we close this podcast? What would be the first question they would ask? I have my idea.
Okay. um, I think they will want to know how do you feel about like the current situation, and Hadley said the expectation of having again the ex-president. I don't really like to mention his name. Um, I think that's one thing that there a lot of people are asking me. What's gonna happen? Have you have any like questions or comments from our clients or friends asking you, what's going on? How do you feel about this? And what's gonna happen if he becomes the president again?
I mean, on the one hand, I'm optimistic that the forces that were able to fight him off for the last 4 years, the 4 years that he was there, will reconvene and be successful again. But I'm also, very cautious. The scary thing with the Project 25 is that it seems very effective. It's very smart. It's very savvy. It's stuff that's within the executive power, that they can do without any court intervention, and they could really upend immigration. And that's the part to me that just really gives me pause. And it seems like the first 4 years was a practice run, and they've gotten
Yeah.
rid. The adults in the room are no longer in the room. The
Right.
crazies are running the asylum, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end well if there is an election. So, other than trying to secure any kind of relief now, or any kind of filings now, if you're eligible for them, if you're looking to claim asylum, I would do it definitely within the
Yeah.
year, through the CBP1 app. I would try to set up a schedule or an appointment on the border and try to do the process, because I don't know if what's going to happen if asylum is going to even be a thing, come January. So those are, the obvious fears. But I do, again, I have to still be optimistic that again, that there will be a fight, and we'll meet that fight. And I hope that we're just able to survive it, and not everyone burn out, or worse. Who knows what
Yeah.
what this mass rounding everyone up and putting them on military bases. It sounds like we're going back to Japanese internment or something. What happens to their family members, to their loved ones? Are they going to get rounded up too? What happens to their attorneys, the people fighting for them? You know, it is scary. I would like to think, you know, the rule of law will prevail and justice will prevail, but it's not without good people fighting, you know, tooth and nail every step of the way.
Yes. Yes.
And so that's, you know,
I
that's
know.
yeah. I'm afraid, but you know, I'm still cautiously optimistic. You know, it's just not much you can do, you know, to to stop the future from happening. You know, time's inevitable in that sense.
And I'll just add that, Biden did give us a relief that starts for filing or is open for filing August 19th for spouses of U.S. citizens to get the parole in place, which we already have for military spouses, which,
Yeah,
allows for legal entry inside the U.S. without having to leave. And also there's a fear that DACA might end. Well, Biden's, got a plan for dreamers, anybody with a 2-year, 4-year degree, to hopefully be able to obtain a non-immigrant visa.
and
So,
that's another lesson, like we saw with DACA when that was
yeah.
rescinded. You had to
Mm-hmm.
get your foot in the door. If you
Yes.
don't have your foot in the door for
Mm-hmm.
this PIP program, you may be left out.
Right.
But if you have your
Exactly.
application, if it's lodged, the injunctions might allow those to go forward, or
Right.
whatever things might happen, whatever rules may come into place. So, you know, I definitely encourage anyone who's eligible to file as soon as possible if they are.
Yes. Move
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a perfect ending to this podcast. Thank you so much, Carlos, for joining us. And Zayra is, in the jungle in Antigua having a great time. So, have a great weekend. Zyra, thank you, Carlos, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Gracias. Se despide la Chapina, Zayra Ivette Padilla. Thank you, Carlos. Gracias. Thank you, la Gringa Hadley.
Gracias. Bye bye.